you understand why it is that mothers are okay with this idea of having a doctor put this needle into their baby's arm?
Yeah, because we're all brought up in the cult of authority. So the authority always comes from people in Halloween costumes. The police have a uniform. The doctor has a white coat. The priest has his black frock with the white thing. Everyone who's acting in a play is wearing a costume, and you and I are just sitting here like normal. And the reason they do that is it makes them more believable. That's what costumes are for. If you want to dress up, it's because you want someone to believe you're something you're not. And we're all taught, oh, no, the vaccines eradicated polio and they eradicated dengue fever and this and that. They never show you, of course, what we know is that those diseases were from other causes and they were already on their way out at the end of their trends when they introduced the vaccine, and then they give it credit. So had they not had a vaccine or not, those diseases were already gone down from zero. Most of it was bad sanitation, bad hygienics. You got shit in your water and your food. Like, yeah. So, and different environmental factors, DDT on the crops. Remember, that was polio. And then, of course, what they do is they say, oh, the vaccine eradicated the disease, but now we got Guillain-Barré syndrome. And you're like, what's that? Like, funny enough, it's the identical symptoms as polio, but we got rid of polio with the vaccine, so it can't be. You're like, well, how can two diseases have the same symptoms? They just rebrand the name of the disease. And then now we can get a vaccine for that. And of course, we know the jabs are causing these diseases. They're not curing anything. And it's really sad, because a lot of parents, they are learning. It's unfortunately, they're learning the hard way because you cripple your child for life or kill them. Remember during COVID, SIDS, or cot death, they used to call it, sudden infant death syndrome, it went away like 500%. Funny enough, when you couldn't take your children in to get their vaccines and vitamin K shots and all that, kids stopped dying in their cots just right during the lockdowns for 3 months. You're like, well, that's a coincidence. And then we had sudden adult death syndrome. SADS came in. Well, that's funny. That's never existed in the world. And then they rolled out a mass worldwide injection program with boosters, and suddenly adults are just died suddenly. Unfortunately, the programming is so deep that you need to be a kooky conspiracy theorist to go looking into medical records and studies and vaccine history. You're just a conspiracy theorist. And you're like, well, funny enough, none of the conspiracy theorists' kids drop dead, nor us, nor are we worried about dropping dead. So, and you sent me an email. Who was the guy? He does Dilbert. I think you've had him on your show. He's got cancer now.
Scott, yes. Yeah, Scott Adams.
Right. So what's his story? He took some jabs and boosters.
And he has cancer, and he made a video saying that he has cancer and that the anti-vaxxers have won. Those are his words.
Well, see, that's really sad. I don't know the guy, but that's horrible. However, we don't have proof that his cancer is from the jabs or I know it correlates, but there is actually no proof that he doesn't have cancer from some other kind of toxins he's been doing. So, and I don't think we won because nobody in the anti-vax community or the no germ community, we don't want to see people with cancer and getting sick and dying. We don't win. We lose just as bad as he does. Because we don't want to see people get sick so we can say, I told you so, we don't want anyone sick. That's why we're out there doing it. Like, our motive is we don't want people getting sick, and that's what these injections do. Because they're poisonous. It's known. You've had lots of guests.
What do you think is the right approach to moms who inject their babies? Should you be sympathetic when their kids get sick, or should you be angry?
I just get sad about it, but I also am at the point where it is what it is. It's not really in my control. So all I can do is put out films like I do, as you know, and go on podcasts and educate people. It's really up to them if they are going to take the time to do the research we say. And I always tell people, don't listen to what I'm saying. Don't ever believe me. I'm getting this isn't my idea. Like I'm reading the studies like everyone else. Just go do the research and make a decision. The sad thing is, once you hurt your kid for life, and it's not actually for life, you know, even if you give them autism or whatever, any of these things, you can detox. There are ways to heal your kids, but unfortunately, the people who know those cures are the same people you didn't listen to in the first place. So you're most likely not going to go see them. You're going to go see the same doctor to look for the cure, you know, and they're going to go, oh, no, we didn't, that wasn't the jab. I think the thing is to just be understanding. Just say you were ignorant. And what is good is that, well, what's bad, but the good thing about it is the more people who hurt their children, they become anti-vaxxers after they know. Because they go, my kid was totally smiling, healthy, rolling around, laughing. I took him to the doctor for his 5 jabs, and the next day he's a vegetable. And cry, you know, and they know, and the doctor's like, no, that's a coincidence. You're like, So the more they hurt our children, the more people we're going to have on our side. So there is a silver lining. It's just not a nice one, I think, you know. Yeah, it's a sad situation.
I remember, Steve, I remember when I was a teenager, vaccines were not, like, they were not a thing. I mean, if someone said to me, are you going to get your flu shot this year? And I said, nah,
Right.
whatever. And then we'd go play tennis or whatever, you know. Now, it's like a cult.
And there's, I can't remember how many the kids get in America now, but it's 60. I think we had 4. I was born in 71. I'm pushing 54. So we had like 4. And then we had that one where they prick you on the arm with the 3-prong thing and you get a scar for life. That right there should be your first sign. Like, what did you put in my arm that put a scar for life? I got really hip to the vaccines because I took a flu shot at work once. They were giving them away free. And I got sick as a dog for like 2 weeks. And then my father took one on a business trip to Phoenix, I think, from Chicago. And he got what they call adult onset juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which is 1 in 200,000. You don't get it as an adult. And he's been on steroids for life, like almost killed him. I saved his life. I hadn't heard from him, threw him over my shoulder, found him on the couch with buckets of vomit, piss, and diarrhea all around him, dying. And I ran him to the hospital, and they had like specialists flying all over. So that's unfortunately, you learn the hard way. But, you know, I thought like, well, why would I take a thing that's supposed to stop me from getting sick with the flu if it made me sick for 2 weeks? That's stupid. That's just not logical.
Steve, when did you start questioning things? Let me ask that differently. When did you start getting red pilled?
Just in general on the whole world, you mean? It was really a buddy of mine. It was kind of, well, yeah, I was a little bit. I was reading books like The Spider's Web. I was getting into like the U.S. funding Iran and Iraq through like farm grain credits through the Banco Nazionale Italia and selling them cluster bombs through Brazil. Like, so I knew the governments were doing dodgy crap, but it was really post 9/11. A friend of mine sent me one of those, I can't remember even what they're called, but, you know, the early ones, Loose Change or whatever, one of these documentaries, like, dude, check this out. You know, I was like, God, what the hell? So I think 9/11 really started red pilling me, and then having my own son. And then I started looking into vaccines because of my own and my father's experience. I was like, man, do I want to be sticking this in my child? So that got me down the health road. And then I started getting into, I met some Merovingians online. They were talking about the occult and esoteric stuff. And I'm a Virgo, so I just like things told straight up. Like, I don't, just tell me straight up how it's going. And they kept saying, no, we can tell you all we want. You won't understand because you don't have the whole knowledge. And as a Virgo, I got upset. You know, I'm like, fuck you. I'll figure it out and I'll tell you how to say. So that dove me down into the occult. Then I got into the Jesuits, the black nobility, and the money, you know, around the spectrum. So I think I just got thirsty for knowledge once I figured out, hang on, things aren't what we think they are. And as a kid, I just hated school. Like, I hated authority. So I've always been anti-authority. So I think it was just in me. I don't know. I couldn't say. It was a series of things.
Do you feel happier having, let's say, more enlightened view of the world?
I do, because I don't worry. At first, it's terrible when you get red pilled because you worry too much about everything. It's really horrible. And then your next reaction, or mine was I've got to tell everybody about all of this right away, and then you start to lose friends and family. They all think you're crazy because they haven't done the work and the research, and they don't know what you're talking about. So you get isolated. But then later, once you get the agendas and what's going on, now I don't freak out about the day-to-day playbook that freaks everyone else out. You can see whatever the flavor of the week is. Oh, Fukushima, or the Trump's going to do this, or they're bombing. I know what the long play is, so I don't have to sit and worry about what's terrible today in the news. I know where it's all going. So in the long run, I think it's liberating. I think most people who have been red pilled, which is funny because actually the red ship, you actually want the blue pill. Everything is opposite. As we were talking about this talk, they've even told you that the red pill is good and the blue pill is bad, when actually the blue shift in the toroidal field is good. So, but yeah, anyone who's ever woken up real hardcore, they know, like, you start to lose friends, family, jobs. It's not easy, but I'm happier now.
I ask that because of the idiom, ignorance is bliss.
There is that, until you then ignorantly inject your child with 4 vaccines and they have autism and their brain's burning and they have a helmet on running their head in the wall. How blissful is that? There comes a time where there's a consequence for your ignorance. I would say ignorance is immediate bliss, but it's pretty frickin' dangerous in the long run in this day and age to be ignorant.
Yeah, you mentioned 9/11. This was a very big event, probably, I would say second to COVID. I think the COVID event was probably the biggest in living memory, but 9/11 probably the second biggest.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective. Did you see it right
away, though? Or how long did it take till you were like, how many years went by till you were like, what up?
Well, this is what I was going to say. So it didn't red pill me. I just thought that it really was a bunch of Muslims who hated America who flew planes into the buildings, right? Because I bought into the propaganda and I didn't actually think for more than 5 minutes about it. But just quickly, can you remember what you were doing on the day?
Oh, I can tell you for certain. I was on tour with my band from Denmark in America, and we were in Chicago, and we had gigs. The whole reason we went is because we were going to get a Rolling Stones review at either Owen's Garage or the Knitting Factory, right under New York Twin Towers. So we did a U.S. tour, a small one in the Northeast, and I woke up to take a pee, and all my band was sitting around this TV watching the first plane had hit, which it didn't, but the first explosion had happened. And then I came out of the bathroom and they were all freaking out. And I'm like, what are you watching on TV? What movie is that? They're like, no, a plane hit the World Trade Center, a bomb. And then as we were all talking, the second one allegedly hit or whatever happened, and I was like, holy shit. And then they came down and we couldn't go to New York because those clubs were in ground zero under rubble. So we got no Rolling Stone review. We got it turned out to be the end. We couldn't ship our gear back to Europe because they said, oh no, you can't ship anything on airplanes anymore. You have to put them on freight. So we couldn't fly our gear to Europe for all of our England showcases. So it pretty much ruined like my career. So I remember very well. But also we were in Chicago. So we're looking up at the Sears Tower, John Hancock building. Now it's the Willis Tower. We're all looking up like, is a plane going to smash into that? Like we thought the whole country was under attack because nobody knew, and then it ruined the rest of the tour because everyone was totally sad. Like it really psychologically freaked. I was excited to bring all these guys from Denmark to wait till you see America. And then everywhere we are, everyone was just totally bummed out. Like it destroyed the whole psyche of the nation. Flat, straight out psychological destruction.
What do you think happened on the day?
I definitely think there were no planes. I think Judy Woods was on it. I think directed weapons and internal bombs. They had those M8 switches from those Israeli students on the 84th floor or whatever. Like there's pictures of them with fuse switch boxes lined all around their office. So they blew it up, and I think they probably used directed energy weapons. I know that a plane was seen going at the Pentagon, and then it was, many witnesses said it lifted up and took off, and then there was an explosion. I know nothing crashed in Shanksville because the hole they said it made in the ground. Planes don't make holes in the ground when they crash. Planes are made out of tinfoil. They, like a bird breaks the nose of a plane. But on the USGS geological survey, that hole was in that ground from like pictures back in the 80s. So it's like, it was a massive psychological operation. Then the gematria, numerology, and everything is Jesuit all the way. It's got Jesuit fingerprints all over. So what I think was crazy is they had the balls to pull that off in broad daylight. I would have done it at night. So no, you know what I mean? Just so it would have been a lot easier to do that at night, but they wanted people in the building. Plus, most people don't know 80% of the World Trade Centers were empty. Most of it was unrented, and they needed to tear them down anyway because there was an asbestos. So it was going to be like hundreds of million renovation project. And I know a lot of people got sick who worked at Ground Zero. I think it was all the asbestos in the air from the fallout. Yeah. What do you think happened?
What you didn't mention is that there was a third building that everybody just seems to forget about that just randomly
Building
went down.
7. There were actually 2 more. There was also 5 and 6. There were actually 5 buildings, 2 planes, all that. And then that building 7 one, the woman on BBC said it had already collapsed like 20 minutes before. It's like behind her while she's doing the newscast saying the Solomon building has collapsed, and it's sitting behind her. And you're like, well, that's funny. It's standing up right behind you. So it's like, it seems they had knowledge. What really happened, though, is it brought in the entire war on terror, the invasion of 7 countries in the Middle East, as General Wesley Clark talked about on Democracy Today, and it brought about the Patriot Act. So, and then all of a sudden, the Homeland Security Act and all this crap. So what it really did is brought in like a totalitarian worldwide control. And these wars, they're not met. How do you win the war on terror? There's like that Australian comedian, Steve Hughes, he's like, how do you beat terror? And it's the same with all these revolutionaries like the Jesuits do. Black Lives Matter, gay pride, the woke thing, the transgender. They're not meant to be won. That's not what the plan is. What you do is you start all these micro revolutions that don't get anywhere, but each group starts to identify with each other. They're like, well, now Black Lives Matter and the rainbow people and the feminism, and they're all together. They're just collecting balls and balls of dust into a giant dirt ball so that you have one totalitarian group. They're not meant to be one. They're meant to keep corralling everyone into one ball through different revolutions that never get one. And those people won't win. They think, oh, when we get in charge, but what was his name? G. Edward Griffin had him on, remember the Russian who defected to Canada, Yuri Bezmenov?
Yuri Bezmenov.
He said the same. He's like, the thing is, once they get in charge, you're the first ones they take out because you're dangerous when you understand that you got duped. These revolutionaries are the first ones that are going to go because they know they're going to be angry that they didn't get their way in the end. After all, that is the plan.
But do you think the world is a better place post-COVID?
It's better than it was during COVID, but it's, I think the thing is we're not seeing it because what they're doing, it's always behind the scene. Transhumanism's moving in. Cash is getting taken away. Cash stations are going down. Stores are slowly putting in more self-checkout, more card, less cash. There's locks turning up on doors. And they've got you looking at, Trump is now fighting with Netanyahu. And, you're looking at the flavor of the day and not looking at what's really going on behind the scenes. More 5G towers going up. So the control grid is tightening still, I think, out of the public eye. People are getting it like people are more aware of transhumanism now, but they don't understand like the control grid is tightening. Like it's going up all around us. COVID did that with the ID passports. you know.
But Steve, what really bugs me, what really grates me the wrong way is it felt like there was this amazing awakening during the COVID era, right? I felt like there were people networking and just starting to think alike. Now, under the Trump administration, everybody's gone back to how it was. They've just forgotten everything. And suddenly Trump can say, we're going to bring in digital ID, and they'll go, yes, that's a great idea. Or they'll talk about digital currency and they'll welcome it. Or they'll talk about mass surveillance via Starlink and they'll welcome it. It's like they just keep, I don't get it. I just don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I think it's because Trump's a salesman. There's no difference. Trump and Biden are both Jesuit schooled. They're both Jesuits. Like Trump's a Mason. His kids are Jesuit schooled. But you first got to keep the people divided. So they like Trump because people hate him, and they like Biden because the right hates Biden, the left hates Trump. So now the right and left hate each other. But then they need a salesman for each group, So, yeah, when Biden's in there and it's all electric ID, everyone's like, oh, and now Trump's in there. Yeah, it's going to stop the terrorists and the foreigners and those Muslims. It's like, oh, yeah, let's put it in. It's how they sell it to you. These dudes are salesmen. So, I can sell you a piece of dog shit if I tell you it's fertilizer. You know what I mean? I just have to make you change your view on the worth of dog shit.
And adding to that, right? I remember just a few years ago, all of those supposed Trump supporters, and I'm not anti-Trump and I'm not anti-Biden, right? I just want to make that clear because I do like some things that Trump says and does. It's not binary; it's not 1 or 0,
right?
But a lot of those people who were, who are Trump supporters, but he wasn't the president yet. They were completely anti the vaccines and all that. And now suddenly RFK is in and they're kind of kicking the can down the road saying, well, what we actually want is maybe good trials. We want better trials on vaccines. They're not making outright statements anymore. They're just kind of, pushing things. They're adjusting the boundaries the whole time now because I think that they are being ideologically driven rather than principled. Principle driven.
Yeah, and they all, like every politician, if you just go back, every country, I don't care who, left, right, whatever they say to get elected, they do the opposite. They never do it, but they can't not do all of it. Like you'd know right away the guy was a liar and a dictator if he didn't do something good. That's why I think, like you say, Trump does some good things and Biden did some, they all do some good things because no one's going to believe someone who does no good things. Otherwise, you've just got like Pol Pot, even Hitler. He made the Volkswagen, like the Germans loved him, man. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, cool enough because he was doing some good things, but that's how they do it. They do like 60% good things, but none of them keep their word. And Trump said he was the godfather of warp speed. He still takes credit that he was the reason they rushed the vaccines in the first place. And now you got, maybe we should be a little safer. You're like, that's the guy who did it in the United States. Nobody, and like you're saying, now his supporters, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like people have a memory about 2 months old. You know what I mean? But I think because Huxley said that. Remember Brave New World? Huxley, in Orwell, 1984, you just got Big Brother and it doesn't care. It just steps on you and watches you and they'll come take you away. Huxley's Brave New World was different. He said, we inundate you with so much information every day. Like you and I were talking about off screen, like Fukushima, BP oil spill. What happened? Did anyone remember any of this? Remember all those immigrants were coming up to the border on Trump's first election? There was like an army of immigrants. Where'd they ever? They never even turned up. I don't think they were real, but that's what I think happens is they just throw like 20,000 things at us a day to worry about, this story and an airplane crashed into a helicopter that we just forget like 4 years ago. Because that's what Huxley was saying. There'll be so much stuff to worry about that you can't care about any one cause anymore. And then you'll take the soma, the drugs, or, you just want to numb yourself, comfortably numb, I think that's it.
And then adding to the Trump appeal, you have Elon Musk,
Right. With his fake space program and his cars that blow up and have graveyards full of and there's not even enough lithium and cobalt to even make the batteries for enough cars for Britain, let alone the world. Yeah. And then his grandfather got kicked out of Canada for being the head of the, it was really transhumanism, but technocracy back then. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much. But again, doesn't it look, it's a movie, right? Like I say, actors. So the judge is, the doctors wear the white coats, the judge wears the black robe, the police wear the hat and the badge and all that. These guys wear suits, and the other guy wears like the billionaire techno cool. These are actors just running scripts every day by the numbers. If you ever talk to Zachary K. Hubbard or follow Gematria Effect News, this is all scripted by the numbers, and it keeps you involved in the play and the drama of the day by day, like I'm saying, so you don't just get away from it and go figure out, okay, I'm going to start learning equity and equity trust and natural law, and I'm going to start looking into injections, and you don't start to liberate yourself. They just want you worried because when you're worried and scared, you are inactive. We all know that. We know the psychology between fear. You're paralyzed. And people who are paralyzed don't do anything for themselves.
Steve, do you think Elon Musk, other than being put in that position that he is actually very smart?
Well, I was going to ask you the same, because I'm sitting around as a musician. I've got gigs. I've got my son here every other week. I'm making films. I'm doing a few interviews here and there. I don't have time to take a dump. How does this guy running like 8? How many companies does he have? 5, 4, 8 huge ones, right? How do you run 8 companies or 5? I don't even know what he's got. And of course, he doesn't know anything about any of it because half of it's fake. I personally think he's a frontman. I can't prove that, but do you know anyone with the energy and time to run like 7 multinational companies? And how is he like one of the richest frontmen in the world? From what? Electric
and a government department.
And what?
And a government department. Was it Doge or something?
Yeah. Well, funny enough, the Doge, when you go back to ancient Venice, the Doge was the guy in charge of all of the black nobility. He was like not the Pope, but he was like the head mafia family, and who he was the mafia boss, Tony Soprano or whatever, That's what the Doge was. He was the guy in charge of all the Venetian black nobility. So it's kind of funny that they're calling Elon Musk the Doge. And the reason the black nobility came about is they killed the Doge, and they said, screw you, we're all going to run our own business. Like they basically killed Tony Soprano, you know what I mean? So it's really funny they're calling him that, just like we know the MAGA. Trump runs on MAGA, Make America Great Again. That's the name of the the highest degree of the Satanic Church. The highest satanic priest is called the MAGA. So they spit it in your face, the Doge, the MAGA. They're just telling you like straight up who's running things. But that's conspiracy theory. And you're like, yeah, but you can look it up. It's like real, So it's kind of funny.
I don't know if you saw the theater between South Africa's president and Trump a few weeks ago in the White House. I mean, it made world news because Trump was going on about, farm attacks and all that. And by the way, it is real, right? There are farm attacks. One white farmer is killed every single week in South Africa, right? That is real. While everybody's talking about the farm attacks and the genocide and all that, so South Africa's president in that conversation made one sentence which everybody seemed to have missed, and something that he never says, and is completely out of character. And he said, "We can only approach these issues with better technology."
There's your transhumanism. There it is, right? The tech. See,
and keep in mind that we don't have Starlink in this country, and now the government says we're getting Starlink.
Wow, right. So yeah, see, it's Hegelian dialectic, right? A dialectic problem, reaction, solution. They roll out some shit and then say, oh, look, we need this. That's how they do it all the time. I didn't hear any of that. It's good you caught that. But are people aware of that, or is it only you who caught that? Or
very few people have picked up on it. But what's also interesting is Catherine Fitz says that Elon Musk he's an operation, and it's a data surveillance operation.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Like I said, I can't prove it, but he's clearly a front. And when his family, his grandfather, like, it's technocracy. It's totally technocracy, which is transhumanism. Call it what you want. I don't care. But an electronic surveillance control grid that's going to be run. The other thing that everyone's not seeing is the black nobility. The Jesuits work for the Roman Catholic Church, who works for the black nobility, right? That's who's really running things. That's how it goes. You've had plenty of guests talking about this. The thing they don't have is what they used to have is there was no separation of church and state. The government's government and the religion's the religion. What they want is that together. They want that back again because the church is the control mechanism behind where this is all going. That's where your taxes all go. They go into Switzerland through the Vatican. It's not going to the Jays, as we've talked about. So what they need to do is if you notice, a lot of the people aligned with Trump, or even a lot of the world leaders, do you notice they're far right now all of a sudden? The new trend is like everyone's so sick of the woke left that they're going to far right Christian. They're that. But see, no one understands the reason they even built up all these far left radical revolutions. Like I said, it's to trigger everyone that's the problem. And the reaction is, everyone's sick of that shit, and that now the solution is we're going to go far right with all these religious Christian. It's going to go Christian. So that's also another agenda rolling out is they want control. They want church and state together again, not separate anymore. And that's been a long-term goal for them.
There's an interesting segue there. Now, I just quickly want to go back to, you mentioned the Jays, the Jews. Yeah. Now, I just need to bring this up because since the October 7 thing, there's been this massive increase, at least from what I can tell, in just unadulterated hatred for Jews. Now, I think that's a bad place to be. I don't think just hating somebody for who they are is a good idea. Don't hate me simply because I'm white, or don't hate me simply because I'm South African. Or it's my actual behavior that you might want to hate, and that's okay. So, but the point is this: is that you're going to get pushback because you know that there are Jews in positions of power in central banks and in Hollywood and in education, and so people are going to say, "But Steve, look at that." Yeah,
but you had Francis. Who'd you have talking about the black nobility not long ago?
Yes, well, I've had a number of
what's
guests.
What's her name? I can't remember. What's her name? Never mind. But anyway, you see, it's congressmen and congress members in America who are running the Department of Health, Department of Education, Department of The Jews aren't really in power positions there. They're in management positions, but they don't make the decisions. There are 70, 80 departments in the government. Those are run by congressmen, and they aren't Jews. They're all Roman Catholics. You could go all the way down. Tupper F. Saucy talked about this in Rulers of Evil. Plenty of books show who's who. What's his name? I'm blanking on everyone, but the Committee of 300, Dr. John Coleman. They're every group has bad apples, so that's what they always like to do. They put some Jews in mid-level management positions, put them in the news. You never hear the names though of anyone. The same thing like propaganda, right? You see like a Mao poster or Change, or you see these propaganda posters. Everyone knows it is. You can see it. There's like the sunburst behind the guy, and he's looking up. Then you see all these cartoons of these evil Jews with the hook nose and they look like Dick Dastardly. Do you think if the Jews were in charge that there would be those cartoons all over? You can't see that's propaganda. The Jews are putting out cartoons of themselves with hook noses and, no, the people who are running the stuff, you don't hear about them ever. You hear about the Jews. You can say anything you want about the Jews. You got what's his name, Green, and go to any channel on YouTube, BitChute. They're bashing Jews left and right and center. Well, if the Jews ran the place, Don't you think that's the videos that YouTube would be banning? Frances Leader, sorry, yes, yeah, exactly. She's great. Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. So, yeah, there are bad people. Now the thing is, like, people don't know the Jesuits started Israel, and only 1 out of 10 Zionists are Jewish. No one wants to talk about that. Israel's not a Jewish state; it's a Zionist state. And as we've talked about before, that's the goal. Is the Vatican wants the Middle East for the black nobility. They don't like Jews and they don't like Arabs. That's why I said this at Anarchapulco a year and a half ago. I said it on your show. I said it on AlphaCast. I said, you watch. They're going to select Trump again, just like they did Grover Cleveland. They're going to give him a second term with one between. And then he's going to suddenly pull out on Israel because I'm a man of the people. And sure enough, he's fighting, Benjamin Milkowski or whatever his real name is, like now he's having a fight with it. And I told people, I said, that's the whole point. And now
But is that not theater?
This is all theater, yeah, because this is the whole point. And even like, Patrick Henningsen, who's on UK Column and 21st Century Wire, now rockets are getting into Israel from from Iran and Yemen. They just took out like 2 U.S. fighter jets. Hornets, like $1 billion infrastructure. So now we know that the Middle East, the Arabs and Muslim world can strike Israel, and that's what I've been telling people for 2 years. That's the point. They want mutual annihilation so they can come in and clean up the mess. Eventually, they will call the U.S. and the West, Britain. The West will come back in. Once the damage, just like they're going to do with Palestine, the genocide's already done. And then, like, when it's pretty much, you can't turn back, and then they're going to we need to put an end to this. And I think Trump even said, right, they're just going to bulldoze it all out and make condos and shit in Gaza. You're like, what the hell, man? I can't believe people follow this guy. Like, it's just ludicrous. Ludicrous.
You said earlier that once you see the game plan, your anxiety levels go down. Steve, what is that game plan? Well,
that's what I'm saying. The game plan is the Roman Catholic Church used to have total control of the world. They were with the state. And that's a whole nother show, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, and who sided with the Vatican and who sided with the kings and the kings and the dukes and all that. That is the plan, and they want top-down vertical control. So what we have right now is horizontal control. They're basically like the pharaohs, but that's another story. They don't come from Egypt either. But what's going on right now is it's like mob wars. Every country's president they're related to these black nobility families. Everyone knows, like, oh yeah, Trump's related to Charlemagne and King John II, and so is Biden and Clinton. There hasn't been one who isn't, even Obama. And it's every country you go to, they're related. So, but they're like mob bosses. So what they want is they kind of want control of each country. The president says, I want to run this part of the patch. But the black nobility say, no, we want it back to the old days where there's, Papa, the Pope, gives the orders down. And of course, he's taking orders from the gray Pope, Pepe Orsini, and then you've got the black Pope of the Jesuits, probably still above the white Pope. But that's what they want. They want to go back to vertical rule. They're having fights over who runs the New World Order. The New World Order is old. It's been around for 1,000 years. Like, this is nothing new. We're already in it. But they're having fights over vertical versus horizontal control. They want one king of the world is what they want, not a bunch of kings, different kings.
You said they're having fights. Now, there's something interesting. Okay, so David Icke, who I like, but he seems to hold his view that everything is just this well-oiled machine controlled right from the top. You suggesting that there are internal fights, there's competition happening.
Yeah, I'm suggesting there used to be a well-oiled machine running straight from the top, and that top was the black nobility through the Vatican, through the Holy Roman appointed kings, queens, dukes, later presidents, prime ministers. It's not happening anymore. They want it back. Like, it's gotten a little bit out of control. So yeah, I'm suggesting they're having like mob wars. That said, when the Gambinis are fighting whoever's over like Miami, they still listen to the top boss in New York. They'll fight within the mob, but the head of the mob runs it. And I'm suggesting that's what's going on here. Is they're all salivating at the chops. I think they're having little turf wars. Personally, that's what I see. Which could be our saving grace. They could take themselves down, actually, just through sheer greed and stupidity.
But what you're saying possibly means that the simulation model that David speaks about isn't correct.
I agree with him that it is still run very tightly controlled from the pyramid thing you're talking about, from the Council of 13. Yeah, well, that's the black nobility. Yeah, I totally agree that there is the Black Nobility Council of 13 at the top, and really it's actually 4 families or 5 at the top of that. But 5 people can't run the world. I think that's part of the big push for the technocracy and now the AI, right? How quick is AI taking off, man? I think you and I talked about AI literally 2 or 3 years ago, and we were like, that's 10 years off. No, man, everyone's using it now. Look how quick that came on. It was literally 2 years. It's dominating everything.
My opinion is that I don't think it will ever take over. I don't think it has the ability to, because I think there'll always be humans in control of it.
Yeah, so you don't see a Terminator Skynet situation. Well, I don't think there's nukes for it to leash. They can't unleash it. We've got BFBs, like we said. I won't say it on UK column, but big friggin' bombs. I don't see it working like that. Here's the problem I see with AI. Because
it's people willingly. Hang on. What I'm saying is people willingly are giving up their own sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not AI taking it from them. It's people choosing to give up sovereignty.
Right. And here's the problem I see with AI is I see it as a 2-generational soft kill. AI is doing everyone's thinking for them. That's doing everyone's, just like Google, but now it's doing it for you, and it's smarter and it's faster. It can literally write you a song in half a second. It's crazy. What that does eventually is it puts your brain in atrophy. You need to use your brain for it to keep working. Otherwise, it turns to jelly, like those fat people in Wall-E floating around on those, the levitating thing. All they do is eat. So after two generations where people don't have to use their brain, the human brain is literally going to atrophy and cause people are going to be born stupid, raised stupid. And that way, then you're not going to be able to, if the AI does in 2 generations come up with a way to control us through the technic grid that they're putting up. Yeah, the humans are putting it up. If the AI gets control, there won't be anyone left smart enough to figure out how to stop it. There won't be John Connor. You know what I mean? There's going to be a bunch of Wallies floating around on their levitating platforms. That's the danger I see, is it's going to make people stupid.
Steve, a problem that always arises when we have these kinds of conversations is that people will say, yo, but you guys are so negative, so pessimistic. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or is that light a train coming towards us?
Oh, yeah. That was a great Cracker song. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Someone please tell me it's not a train. I see it like this. Because we still have loopholes with equity and equity trust, there are legal loopholes that they're still using in the maritime system or under the law system. I think there are going to be pockets of people okay. And I think who are going to have a way better time than we've been having. And I think there's going to be people screwed. And you could see that in Brave New World. If you remember did you read Brave New World or ever see the movie on it? That's Huxley. Yeah. They actually did a really dodgy, early 80s movie version of it. I can recommend watching it again. It's long. It's 2.5 hours. But in the Brave New World, you had the people living in the cities, the alphas, betas, gammas, and then they go on vacation to see the wild men. And that was the humans they just left alone, living out in the wild, who didn't want to be part of the system. You had the same thing in 1984. Winston and all them, they're under the system of Big Brother, but down in the city, the proletariats are still out drinking in bars in London and singing. They drop a few bombs in there once in a while just to show them who's boss, but they're pretty much left to their devices. And I see the world, I think those books are both very right. I think there's going to be people making little collectives here and there that are going to be amazing. And I don't think the government's going to come after you with drones and blow up you and your 40 farmer buddies. You know what I mean? Like, they might light the place on fire like they do, or floods, you know, like they're doing with these California fires, laser beam wars. But I don't think they're just going to like come around and round up everyone who's not in, because it is voluntary, like you're saying. If you want to be in the slave system, it's because you're volunteering, and the people are taking action to get out of it. So yeah, I think there's going to be hell on earth, just like there is always. There's going to be hell on earth for some people who go along with this shit and don't wake up, and there's going to be heaven on earth, I think, for those who are waking up and taking action.
I think another great parallel, other than say Brave New World, is actually Game of Thrones. In many ways, it is a metaphor for. I don't know if you know the story, but the plot basically is that you have this world that is fighting, for freedom. Meanwhile, there's an even bigger threat that's coming from the north. Winter is coming, and everybody ignores it.
I mean, it's probably no accident that series was written like that. They tell you what's going on, yeah. So that's the question. What is winter? What's the metaphor for winter is coming? Is it the grand solar minimum? Maybe winter literally is coming. Are we in for a grand solar minimum? And food shortages, and, like 1812 was called 1800 and frozen to death. The summer never came, and they all starved to death. Is that what's going on? I don't know.
But that's part of the whole Red Pill experience, is that you realize how inverted everything is.
Yeah, and I think Game of Thrones is the Game of Thrones term, that's like what I'm talking about with the mob wars. It is that, like, the little kings, and they're all fighting each other for, like, who's going to control, the main city, or, whatever. I can't remember. Game of Thrones was years ago, but yeah, they're like each having a fight in allegiances and alliances and backstabbing and betrayal. I think the elites are just like that. I think Game of Thrones is real. It's like that by design, because these are Satanists and Luciferians and occultists. That's what you do. You invert reality. You take the reality of the realm, God's realm, or if you don't believe in God, whatever, you take all that is good and then turn evil into good. War is peace, freedom is slavery. That's what Orwell said, all that double think, double speak. That's what you do. You invert everything so no one knows what's up, what's down, what's right, what's wrong. And that's where you get all this fighting. You got people who are awake to it all sound like frickin' crazies to people who are totally asleep, because they don't even have a reference from where you're coming from, So how are you going to get along? You're two human beings totally flipped upside down from each other. And that's how they keep it on purpose. That's why the media, isn't it like seven corporations? And probably they're all owned at the top by like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. So, of course, the media is not going to tell you anything, because they work for their corporate overlords, their corporations. You know what I mean? I think it's shocking that we're still allowed to sit around and have these kind of talks. That, if people want something positive, they aren't in total control, or this shit would have been shut down long ago, man. You and I would have got rounded up and sent off to the camps like long ago if they had total control, where they want it to be like that. So if anyone wants some saving grace, this talk right here and ones like it are proof that they don't run the roost totally yet. So maybe there I might disagree with David Icke. Now, they might be letting us have these talks to collect data against us for trials later. I don't know, like, if I'll see in a jumpsuit in a lithium.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah. Steve, I'm not entirely certain that everybody can play 5D chess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, I also think that a lot of these elites are just also quite stupid.
Yeah, they do some dumb stuff. I agree with you. There's no such thing as 5D chess anyway. That's stupid. That's just totally dumb. We live in a 3D world.
No, but that came about, I think, from Q.
That's 3D chess. Yeah, Trump and Q and the Q in attack. That's the Rothschilds Q in attack. The Queen Q clearance security. Energy clearance security. That's all that. That was the 3D chess. Was telling you they're playing 5D chess against the black hats and the white hats, and and HC. You're telling me I can't. Nobody can figure out what HC is. Hillary Clinton.
But it makes general conversation impossible. I was chatting to somebody the other day, and I said, have you forgotten warp speed? Right? And they go, yes, but warp speed was a strategy against the FEMA camps.
I mean, that's the problem is if you want to believe something bad enough, you can make up anything. And Q is the Q psyop, I call it. It's a master at that. It's a total master at spinning. First of all, it's a story. Who are these white hats and these black hats? Well, where do they live? What's their names and addresses? It's like the war on terror. It's the black hats. You're like, okay, show me their names. Show me where they live. Let's go get them. Let's arrest them, round them up, not kill them. Let's go throw them in jail, try them. Well, you can't. It's a fake entity without a face and a name and addresses. I'll tell you, he's got addresses as the black nobility. I can tell you where the Jesuit headquarters are. I can tell you where they all live. So it's another one of these abstract things. And it sounds good, though, right? Like, and again, it makes you inactive because you're like, what is the message of Q? Don't do anything. The white hats have this all sorted. We've got it. Right? How long? Well, when did Q come out? Like that was Trump's first. What's that? Like 12 years ago? When did Q come out? 2017.
Trust the plan, Steve.
Yeah.
Trust the plan.
Sure. I mean, you're welcome to. But you know what I mean? I know people who still are. I know people. They're actually family members, so I'm not going to say their name here. But I know people who believed in Q, figured out it was BS during COVID, and are now back on Q again. I'm like, what? I can't believe it. I'm like, how did you? They got off Q and they got addicted to it again. Because they're great at it. You could say anything but the reason that is because, you could just make up any nonsense. And if you want to believe it, you'll believe it, of course. If you want to believe something, that's what sales is all about. That's what liars do and sociopaths and con men. They know what you want. So they'll say anything to make you do what they want, right? That's the whole point. All I need to do is know what you really want. And people want everything to be okay. Even though it's not really all going okay, under the thing. But it is for the most, like, my life's great. Isn't your life great? I'm having a good time.
I actually think that South Africa is a good place to be for the technocratic looming future.
Yeah, well,
in actual fact, I think Africa in general is a good continent to be.
Yeah, totally. I would say Micronesia, anywhere like that, anywhere that's still got a little backwards, let's call it, or still in the 50s, or, so anyone who's not like got a Starbucks on every third corner. Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think, or just out in the rural anywhere, no matter what country you're in, I totally agree. But
in actual fact, I would argue that the Amish are ahead of the curve.
They've been ahead since the beginning, man. They're starting. We used to all laugh at them, like they're looking great now. You're like, Jesus, man. They look great. I keep thinking of that movie. What was the Kingpin, the bowling movie? Did you ever see that movie with Bill Murray and Woody? Oh, go watch Kingpin with Bill Murray and Woody Harrelson. It's hilarious. Oh, you got to watch it, man. I won't tell you, but yeah, it's too gross for a UK column. There's a scene in there that's just amazing. But yeah, they're looking great. And I think, like I said, in the future, We can still use technology. You know, I'm not against technology at all. I think AI is awesome. Yeah. I think AI is great if you use it, if you still use your brain. I think what I'm going to do, I won't speak for anyone. I'm going to use AI as little as I can to make sure that I still have to use my nut. You know what I mean? Because I don't want my nut going mushy. You know, I already do that enough with beer and some whiskey. And so
I think the whole thing with technology and AI and all that, these are also tools that can be used for good. And so you just have to apply some discernment.
Well, it's kind of funny. Do you know the philosopher Alan Watts? Remember him? In the 60s and 70s. He was a big influence on me. He did he was totally for transhumanism. I wouldn't say for it, he just wasn't against it. And he did a lecture where he said, look, now this lecture was in like 1970 or 71, so we didn't really have computers. I think we might have had like IBM had a thing the size of my house, you know, like with big knobs. But what he was saying was totally true. He said he said humans used to be telekinetic, psychic. We could talk to, you know, we used to be able to communicate through the ether. And he said we lost that. And all technology up to that 1971 was us trying to get back together to each other as one. And he even predicted the internet. And he said there will come a time when movies won't be any good anymore because you're going to really want to feel that girl dancing there. And pretty soon you're going to want to dance with that girl. And they're going to make a technology where you can actually hold her, but then you're going to want to feel her. And he said, then they're going to make a technology, you know, and he called it all. He said, we're just going to keep building this stuff until we're everything connected together. And he said, you won't be able to do anything in secret. There won't be lying because everything will be known and spied on and watched. And he said, this was just all this technology is a natural extension of the human body coming out. You know, and that was I'm not saying that's my opinion, but that was he was just saying that's how it's going to go. And sure enough, we got all these 3D holograms now, right? And these Google glasses and what's this Neuralink shit? I don't know if that even works. Do you think Neuralink's real or, you know, these I could be off.
I'm looking at the time. Give me a nugget of wisdom.
A nugget of wisdom, live in the now, be happy. If don't sit around on the internet worrying about today's story and what crashed into what and what's going to happen tomorrow and worrying about what happened to you yesterday. Love, forgive, but don't forget. If you're having a good time now, that's all there is the now. And don't live in fear. If you get in fear from those people sitting around in front of your computer afraid, it's pointless. Go outside, hug a tree, take your kid out, go fishing. Just go enjoy life. It is what it is. That's my wisdom. It is what it is. Like it or not. How's that?
Steve, how can I follow you?
Spacebusters on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, Vigilante.tv. If you need to write me, spacebusters@hotmail.com. Please don't find me on Facebook and start riddling me with Messenger and friend requests because I get thousands of them and I use that for personal mail with family and work. So I miss important messages because I get like thousands of these Facebook things. So spacebusters@hotmail.com if you want to talk or whatever. But yeah, Jerm, great too. And congrats for getting on UK Column, man.